Hello and welcome to the Real Eyes Realize podcast. I'm Christina Roberts-Enneking, and I am so grateful to welcome you to this podcast where we witness life and service dancing together. In each episode, we feature everyday people creating ripple effects, actualizing love, aka real positive ripples in their families, communities, and our world at large. These are the sparks that inspire action, heart-centered service, and courageous truth-telling for us all. So wherever you are, walking, driving, or simply sitting still, we invite you to listen deeply, reflect openly, and join us in discovering the real ripple effects actualizing love in this world. Let's take a listen.
So we are welcoming an incredible friend and guest to our Realize podcast here, our launch of our next season. And so without further delay, let me introduce our guest, Pear Urushima, who is the founder of Kanreki Productions. She is a third-generation Japanese American with a background in marketing, production, directing, and writing, and comes from Los Angeles, California. With over 25 years of experience in Silicon Valley's high-tech marketing and branding landscape, Pear has skillfully and successfully navigated countless creative challenges, and her portfolio highlights the intricacies of marketing, multimedia content creation, and storytelling. Her corporate experience gave her the foundation to leap into producing and publishing new works independently. In addition to Kanreki Productions, she founded Slow Drum Press as a woman-owned small business based in California. Both ventures were born from a commitment to community service, to share stories, poetry, and prose from and for people who quietly inhabit the earth, whose voices are an integral part of our culture. So Pear, as we begin, first of all, I just want to say, as I read your bio, I've known you for many, many years as a friend, as a yogi, as somebody who's gone on retreat with me. But to hear everything put together in one little couple of, sentences, how do you feel when you hear your bio?
I don't know. I don't hear somebody say it that often. But thank you for saying it out loud. Yeah, it just, it's kind of a little bit surreal, but it sort of encapsulates a lot of years in just to a fraction of time. But a lot has gone by. I've learned a lot, met a lot of people,
Yes.
So anyway, thank you for that summary.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's awesome. And as I invite individuals who are listening to this podcast, this is really an ability for us to get a window into you, a little bit of past, a little bit of what you're working on, but to be able to kind of unfurl some layers here. So we've talked about your bio, but I'd like to start off, first of all, with you just kind of thinking about maybe some key points in your life, almost like a Reader's Digest view of your path thus far, of some of the key things that maybe have brought you to where you are here today.
A few things. How do people normally answer? How far back should I go?
Some people will go, I was born in a small town and such and such.
I'm pretty old. So, okay, give me a couple hints and then I'll answer.
So yeah. I love to think about family of origin, background. Maybe there's a cultural background. Also, maybe what got you into your career and some of the things that maybe would be a highlight of something that kind of fostered maybe this creative spark that you talk about in your bio. And then maybe what launched you into what you're doing now with this independent part.
Okay. Well, my lineage is, as you mentioned, I'm third generation. I'm a Sansei, so I'm Japanese American. So that means my parents were born here. My grandparents were born in Japan. And so I bring with me that culture, that amazing culture. So that is a lot of my background and informs a lot of who I am. And so part of that culture is, a lot of emphasis on education and arts and sort of this gambate, spirit of being just really going for it, but doing it in a quiet and humble way. And so, I went to college, I got a master's degree, and I ended up in the Silicon Valley after a while. And so there I had this a long run with in the high tech industry. And so there I was able to thrive in marketing. So I, began a career in marketing, and that really suited me. It fit me quite well. And so it was part creative, and I could do some writing, and I could do some storytelling, and I could, do all those kinds of things, which were really fun for me. And I guess any other markers? Well, I've always lived in California, so but I've traveled around the world. So I think that's helped me just get a perspective of just life and other people. Empathy.
Empathy is a big one. When you think about, I know you've done travel around the world. Are there any places or any specific excursions that maybe come up that gave you maybe a perspective that you could share with us from a storytelling perspective?
I think that, all travels just has something. You just have to be open to it, and it kind of just finds you. So, certainly traveling internationally, there's always something a little different because it's a different culture than America. So I don't know if I would pinpoint just one. Certainly, like you and I went to Peru. So that was really something that was riveting to me because I had never been to South America before. And so that feeling of just camaraderie coming together, people that didn't know each other. I mean, I knew you and a couple people, but by and large, I didn't know anybody. I certainly didn't know anybody that was there. And so the stories that emerged from there were just these really intimate conversations. You're sitting next to somebody on the bus, you're sitting next to somebody, walking next to somebody on a trail, or you're talking to the native people. And it was, you just kind of look for those little nuggets of life.
Yes. Yeah. I was just talking with a girlfriend about how international travel, especially I feel going to some place where in that trip we were building greenhouses for people that were high up in the Andes. And when we meet the indigenous individuals and the people who are living in their culture, there's such an exchange, right? We might have been giving the gift of labor in a greenhouse, but there's so much that we receive in return. Do you remember anything in particular about that trip that was what you received as a gift, coming as a woman from Silicon Valley?
Yeah, I think what I received as a gift is sort of like perspective, which then I think with perspective comes more empathy and compassion. The other gift is like how much we are so much alike because we're building greenhouses, we're getting our hands dirty. And so there's this commonality between my culture and every culture of rigor and work and working the land and coming together and working hard. And, but doing that with shared values of, we can do this stronger, as a group, rather than as one. And so there were just a lot of gifts of remembering that we are humans and we're really so much alike.
I love that. So when you talk about that remembrance and the rigor and the hard work and putting that like blood and sweat equity into something, and you also talk about the cultural overlay of that spirit of being quiet and humble. Tell me about your path and how you navigated achievement and kind of going for it, as well as that quiet, humble spirit that was inside and maybe didn't necessarily want to be seen, or if you even faced that.
Yeah. So I think like I'll just maybe talk about just corporate life. So me as a female, as an Asian female, person of color, later in my career, I became older than most of the other people that I worked with. So to me, it was difficult to be seen. And my personality is not to be, to be such a strong and bold person. So my way of being the best that I could be was kind of doing it quietly and doing it with really meticulous attention to detail, meticulous attention to aesthetics, meticulous attention to, how people would receive whatever I was working on. But it wasn't important to me to, really make myself known in any way. So, although I struggled with that a lot, but, to be seen and heard, it's kind of different now that I don't have a corporate job anymore, but still, I think I got a lot of satisfaction out of just staying who I was in that regard.
That.
Yeah.
And you said that the marketing job fit you, like you actually kind of had this motion of almost putting on a coat. And so the creativity piece of that, the ability to actually tell stories, and then also kind of navigating and working with others in a collaborative fashion, but also doing what you needed to do offline. I'm holding right now a book that I received from you. It's your collection of poems, and it is called When the Critic Sleeps. And when we were talking in our intake call, a big focus of this podcast today is to kind of dive into that notion of how do you make friends with your inner critic? So when I think about that, or when you think about that for you in your life, do you have any realizations that you can share on your own journey that may be helpful for other people that deal with that?
Yeah, I think that inner critics, I think most people would probably say they have this, chatty voice, that tells you things like, oh, you should have done it this way or that way. You should, you could have done this better or what have you. So there's that sort of critic that sits alongside you. So I would just say in terms of making friends with your critic, it's sort of being thankful that you have a critic, because that critic is there really to ensure that, you're doing a good job. It's there to, and sometimes protect you. Sometimes you have to calm it down, and sometimes you just say, everything's going to be okay. But yeah, so you kind of like let the critic be, and you just do what you have to do anyway. But yeah.
I love that. And I would agree. I think everyone has that. I think part of our life journey is to figure out how to make friends with that critic, because before it's a great friend, it's taking up free real estate in our mind. And sometimes that rumination and that like self-doubt and self-deprecation can really blast our self-esteem in terms of confidence and how we show up. So being in a very high profile job in technology in Silicon Valley, a time where things were growing, how would you kind of tame that? Or if you were working with people that maybe were younger and were facing that, where you have maybe already seen it, how would you talk to them about being able to tame that voice?
That's a great question. I don't know if I ever had a conversation specifically like that, but I can tell you it was always very difficult for me to tame the voice, especially during, when I had a corporate job, a very, high profile job. There was a lot of stress and all of that, but I could see other people who perhaps were a lot more confident than me. And even if they had critics or something, they just seem to, everybody compensates in a different way. Everybody copes in a different way. So I learned a lot from other people. I think for myself, the coping skills of just, wanting to do something perfectly. Like I just honestly, I strove for that, to do something really, really, really great. So, and yet I had the critic. So it's kind of like you have to sit side saddle with your critic.
Yeah.
And, exist in parallel, coexist in a happy way.
I love that. Myself being a parent now to two teenagers turning into adults, I just went down to the passport office and they're 18 and 20 and just getting that next evolution of passport that'll be good for 10 years. I'm realizing that there is this befriending that goes on to who used to be children. I still see them as my children. And I see that as an individual too, as how do I look back at my little girl and befriend her and also understand that she has a voice, and how do I listen to that? So did you ever go back and do you look at your little girl in any way, and do you tell her words of encouragement, or what's your love language with your little girl?
Yeah, sometimes. I think that in the past, I've written letters to my younger self at various ages. I think that's a great exercise to do. I think that you just practice kind self-talk and, you just learn how to rewire because it's all about your brain. Your brain can be rewired pretty quickly, but with repetition, right?
Yeah.
So, my advice to two teenagers, if they're struggling with that, is just to, um, you know, how do you tell them to be confident? But you tell them to talk to themselves in ways that are uplifting. You tell them, just be authentic, to be themselves and not be afraid.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And in this world, right, and I'm really more referring to Western world, that can be
Yeah.
difficult. It can be difficult, especially
Mm-hmm.
depending on your cultural background, your gender, your so many influences. And sometimes we want to
Mm-hmm.
hold back from who we really are. And sometimes there's real fear
Mm-hmm.
out there going on.
Yeah.
And you mentioned being Japanese American growing up and being a person who maybe felt othered at some point in time. So what message
Mm-hmm.
would you give to people who maybe feel afraid to stick their whole selves out there in the world?
I would get support. I would offer that, don't do anything alone. I would also offer that introspection, reflection is great, to do journal writing. There's so much going on inside that just needs its own voice. And sometimes it doesn't have to be out loud. You just need to write it down. Pay attention to your dreams. Draw it out if you have to, if you like to draw, dance it out if you need to dance. And, make friends with wise people. And they might be people your age. They might be people older than you, younger than you. And, make friends with them, ask for their advice and support. And yeah, their love and guidance.
I love that. So I'm going to flip a little bit from the inner critic conversation to creative sparks, because I also know, and part of I would say your huge talent in marketing, but also just as an individual in this world, is your creativity. In fact, I have the honor of having a piece that you made in our home, and I just love it because I know it was made with your own loving hands and how much that creative spark is within you. So are there any practices or things that you do or say to yourself to actually ignite that, especially if maybe you're feeling writer's block or creative stagnation?
That's a great question, because I think I feel creative most of the time, and I get inspiration from almost anything. And I'll give you a very quick example, is that I discovered in my kitchen there was a leak. And so there was mold in the kitchen. And so I happened to be talking to another friend of mine. She's also a writer. And we were just talking about our idiosyncrasies and, oh, what if we knew we had mold? And would we go to the ER and get mold tested? And then we said, oh, we should write a sitcom about it. And so last night I was writing episodes, and I called this TV show The Sickos. And so I get inspiration from anything. So that was from the mold, because I'm looking at the kitchen now, and there's mold. And so how can I make it funny? And so that just, I don't know, I get from anything.
I love that. I love that. I love the Sickos. We're gonna wait to see the Sickos sitcom. I think we need some humor in our world, and so wouldn't that be fabulous?
Yeah. So I would just say you could get it from anything. Just let it, just let it flow.
That's good. Well, in that light too, so as I said, I'm looking at your book of poetry, and it's beautiful. As I shared with you, I read it in one day. I have almost every page dog-eared and highlighted and notes in the margin. It's so amazing. But so I'm curious, because a lot of people, I think, feel before they get into something that maybe feel like a passion of their heart, that I need formal education, or I need these certifications. I need to get good before I'm able to give myself permission to do that. So did you ever have formal education in poetry, or how did you get started?
I had zero education in poetry. I just had the basic college education, so I never had anything formal. I mean, I think I took maybe a couple workshops, but I just like to rhyme things, and I just, like to write poetry, and it just sort of comes out in rhyme, and sometimes it doesn't rhyme. And but I like reading poetry, so I got a lot of, inspiration from reading poetry, but no formal training, nothing like that.
Oh my goodness. It's amazing. And I'm curious, in the book, like I'm holding it here in front of me. I don't know if you have it in front of you, but
I do. Yeah.
Do you? Okay. Is there a favorite poem of yours? And if so, would you be willing to read it to us so we can hear it coming from you?
Well, that's very nice of you to ask. So why don't I like doing things in the moment. So, okay, here's one that I just turned to, and it's on page 30, and it's called Change Me. Should I just go ahead and read it?
Go for it.
Okay, this is called Change Me. Change me into someone with a wild and reckless will. Someone who highlights books until they're unrecognizable. Someone who couldn't be bothered with glares and stares, should haves and could haves, opinions and suspicions. Someone who lives by the mantra, what if failing doesn't matter? Someone who puts fun before fear, coloring before othering, dancing before duty, play before obligation. Change me, please, into that someone.
I love that. And I'm just going to show that I have, it's not unrecognizable, but I have notes all over that one, specifically
that's great.
boxing the phrase, what if failing doesn't matter? And italicizing with a love this comment, someone who puts fun before fear, coloring before othering, dancing before duty, and play before obligation.
Yeah.
It's just powerful. And what if we lived that way?
I know. What if we all lived that way?
Yes. Yeah. What a society.
Can you imagine? Can you even imagine? Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah. Another one that was my favorite, and we can kind of end with this, is at the very end, Ode to the Poet. It's after your bio, so it's around 112, 113. And I wrote on here, love this, love her, which is an ode to you. But would you be willing to read it, or would you rather listen to the reading of it?
Why don't you read it? Only because the type is smaller. I'd have to get my glasses. Could you read it?
I will read it. Yes, with you. Okay, so here we go. It's at the very end of the book for those that do receive your copy. And I highly recommend you do it, and we will put how to in the show notes. But it says, Ode to the Poet. To the one, both cowardly and confident, insecure and indignant, an architect of words built on a scaffold, often wobbly, forever trusted, tackling the most noble of tasks, care of the heart, purveyor of the soul, expression of self. Ode to the poet, to the one who dwells in the nonsensical, the whimsical, and the muck of the unresolved, to the one who cries in and out of rhymes, broken lines, truths and lies, to the one who can't face another day without the promise of wonderment and escape every poem holds. That's incredible.
Oh, thank you. I hadn't really read that in a long time. I forgot that I wrote that. Yeah.
So when you hear that,
I remember writing it. Yeah.
Do you? Is that what you feel your poems offer you?
I do. Yeah. I remember writing. I do remember just the process of writing this, that it just came really quickly. You know, sometimes I just write really fast. So this one, I felt like the book needed something to kind of close it out. So,
It's beautiful. Beautiful. So now with Kanreki Productions, you have also talking about sitcoms, but you've actually published, directed, written a documentary. And so I'd like you to tell us a little bit more about this incredible, incredible movie that is award-winning now called Because of You, I Am. Can you please tell us like that journey and what you would like people to receive when they watch the movie?
Oh, okay. Let me try to encapsulate that. So, and thank you for the question. So, Because of You, I Am is the name of the film. And it's a film that was produced in basically 2023. But the reason for the film, it didn't start out to be a documentary per se. It started out that two dear friends of mine, who are artists and taiko players and live in San Jose, PJ and Roy Hirabayashi, they were coming upon their 50th anniversary of playing taiko. And so with that anniversary, they wanted to mark it with a live show, which they asked me to produce. And so I thought, how can I bring my best to the story and help them best tell it and share it with their friends and family. And so I was thinking, I could bring, multimedia and film. So originally we just filmed, snippets of interviews with them and B-roll around San Jose. And it was just to be part of a library of creative assets for the show. So we always intended that there would be these little mini stories, but it turned out that there was enough to string together for a 30-minute cohesive story about their life. And so that was just a really great offshoot of the whole process. But it helped to put it together in 30 minutes because then we had an edited piece that was, you have to colorize everything and make it the audio optimal. So we had a very nice clean piece and we thought, it's kind of a documentary. Mm-hmm. And so we named it and then it ended up, we ended up putting it in some film festivals. It was well received.
Yes. Can you tell us about the accolades that you've received, particularly in the Hawaiian Film Festival?
Well, it was at the Honolulu or the Hawaii International Film Festival. And so it was nominated for one of the best documentary films, short documentary films. And it was, so it's gotten some accolades at some of the film festivals. I think it got an audience favorite at the Silicon Valley Asian Pacific Film Festival. So it's just so humbling just to get that because we weren't going for a documentary in the beginning, mm-hmm. but, the way that myself and the director, who is Doug Menuet, we had worked together before and we just have very similar artistic values and ways that we want to, create a story and tell it, mm-hmm. That is, artistic, compelling, sensitive, and respectful.
That's awesome. And it's all of those. Yeah. It's an amazing, amazing documentary. I'm letting all of my family, especially a lot of family that has spent a lot of time in Hawaii, to actually and everyone that I've heard from is like, oh my goodness, that is so telling. Can you tell us a little bit more about taiko and taiko drumming? Mm-hmm. Because that might be something that some of our listeners don't know what that is. So what it is and what the impact mm-hmm. has it been on you?
Well, taiko is a Japanese word for drum. And, I don't know if people have not seen or heard it, I really encourage you to find it because it's really everywhere now. There's many, many, many groups. If you live in the San Jose area, you're really lucky because San Jose Taiko is a performing arts organization that is 50 plus years. And I was lucky enough to be part of it for about 10 years. So taiko, is best experienced live because you just get this reverberation of the drum. There are small taiko drums. There are very big taiko drums. And it's a visceral, just kind of experience that is pretty unforgettable. So, it's just taken our culture by storm. So it came from Japan. In North America, there are many, many, many taiko groups. And what makes it so cool is that, you can play, anybody can play, really. It's sort of like what you make. You can self-compose. You can be a part of a community group. You can be part of a performing group. And, yeah, I would
Yes.
encourage people to seek it out. Yeah.
I would double down on that. And like you said, the reverberation, it's just this deep, deep boom, boom. It to me, it models the heartbeat, when you're in rhythm and circadian rhythms, it's
Yeah.
just powerful. And taiko, for those that don't know, is spelled T as in Tom, Aiko. So if you do want to look it up, that would be how. Yes.
Yes, Taiko. And then again, if you're in San Jose, taiko.org is San Jose Taiko. And yeah, you can learn a lot on that website too about taiko.
Awesome. And we'll put that into the show notes as well. So
Great.
we're kind of rounding into where I want to kind of look to you, Pear. And when you think about your future, so you said you're not in tech anymore, although you're always in tech because I know you and your mind and how it works. But you're retired by choice to enjoy the next chapter of your life. And so when you think about what's most important for you and future generations, I know you're an auntie and you have amazing, amazing people in your life, young ones that you look to. What is that? What's most important?
What's most important now, I think, is I'm still sort of rewiring myself from corporate. It's really hard to shed all that quickly. So I'm still kind of rewiring, but my intent is to keep my production company going, to continue to tell stories, to seek out stories. It's important to me that my publishing, I guess I would say, company, it's called Slow Drum Press, and I created it so that I can uplift voices, the quiet voices that may not otherwise be heard. Mm-hmm. So I think what's next on that front is just finding those stories. So right now I'm working with a very dear friend of mine, and she's written like 200 plus haiku. And she's a Black woman of color, and I told her, you have to get this out, and so I would like to help you. So we're working together to get her first book out as soon as we can.
Love it.
So that's great. And then I'm just also working on some other creative projects. Yeah.
That's cool. So when we think about our listeners and how we can support you, because this podcast is about amplifying and highlighting people in our communities that are making a positive ripple effect. And Pear, you are doing that in spades. How can people who want to support you or support the causes you believe in do that?
Well, for me, it's about supporting each other, because I think there's an energy that just ripples and reverberates when we not only support ourselves, but we support each other. So I would just say to people, do something kind, keep creating, keep doing art and supporting artists. Art is the truth, and art is our true selves, when we create and when we express ourselves. So I would just love it if people just kept supporting themselves in community and finding those communities. That would be really, really delightful.
Yeah. In that, I know, and we'll put all these kind of ways to also keep in connection with you. But I also know, and there's a kind of it's an interesting thing you talked about, like art and being truth. And there's so many people that, feel like connection is social media. And I don't know that that's necessarily true. So when you talk about connection, say more about what that means from your perspective about like that juice of connection and humanity coming together.
Yeah. For me, there is a place for social media, but for me, that connection comes through some of it comes through artistic expression. Like I never really thought that I would, publish a book, but I basically learned how to do it. I took a class called the Tiny Book Course. And so I learned how to do that. But I think that just people, getting out there, not being afraid to be who you are is just super, super important.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, so Pear, what we typically do on this podcast is we end it with a few collective questions. And these are questions that we've asked many of different guests. And so it's off the hip. It's lightning speed. First thing that comes to your mind. So you ready to do that with us?
Okay. Perfect. Okay.
So first one, what are you either reading or watching right now?
Reading or watching? I'm watching, lately on YouTube, I've been watching, I think it's called Quest for the Craft, and it's by Questlove. And he interviews these artists about their craft, and it's so good.
Awesome. I love it.
Yes.
If you could have dinner with anyone, past or present, who would it be and why?
It would be Lin-Manuel Miranda, because I love Hamilton, and I just think I would want to be him in terms of how he writes, how he thinks on his feet, how he can rhyme things. He's a poet, he's a rapper, and I would love to just have dinner with him and hope that some of it would rub off.
I have a feeling it would be dual. I think that he's very much into like learning from others too. He's an amazing listener from what I've heard. That's great. When you think about your hopes and dreams for the future, and you mentioned a little bit about this, what would they be?
My hopes and dreams is for, what's right in front of us, for everybody to live in peace.
Awesome.
We all deserve to live in peace. And that's my big hope.
I love that. It's beautiful. And my last and final question is, what are you grateful for today?
I'm grateful for this time with you. And I'm just grateful for just being able to share. And I'm just grateful for everything. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Pear, I am grateful for you. We all are. Thank you for putting your craft and your beautiful words and your heartfelt wisdom out into the world. And so we will let people know about your book, your movie, and also how to stay connected with you. But thank you for taking the time and sharing with us.
Thank you so much. This has been fun. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you for joining us for another impactful conversation on the Real Eyes Realize podcast. We hope the stories shared today spark reflection, courage, and love in your own journey. Stay connected with us at realize.love and on our social channels, where you will find resources, guest highlights, and ways to keep creating ripple effects of love in the world. And if you know someone with a story worth sharing, we would love to hear from you. Hello at realizerealize.com. Until next time, be true, be bold, be real, and be you. Thank you for joining us for another impactful conversation on the Real Eyes Realize podcast. We hope the stories shared today spark reflection, courage, and love on your own journey. Stay connected with us at realize.love and on social channels, where you will find resources, guest highlights, and ways to keep creating positive ripple effects of love in our world. And if you know someone with a story worth sharing, we would love to hear from you. Until next time, be true, be bold, be real, be you.